Martin Show. We're back on the air. You thought we weren't coming back, right? But we're here, ready to go. We got some great guests as usual. Our star, Allie Peak Wilbur, and David Moulton, among other people. Want to hear from you, folks. I'm Buddy Martin. The show now is on the air. Tell your friends and neighbors. Let's go.
It's time again for Buddy Martin. Call him up and tell him what you're thinking. But be kind because he's doing the best he can.
Better, stronger, faster.
Mama says that alligators are ornery because they got all them teeth but no toothbrush.
Hey, what if the voice calls while you're gone?
Take a message.
Bye!
You ready, champ?
I'm ready for this my whole life.
I'm incapable of small talk. But that's why you love me, right?
Kind of intimidating to be in the presence of so many great athletes.
Evening, folks. Welcome back to the program. Been off a couple of days, catching up on a few things. And before we go to Allie, which we always look forward to, if you're not watching our podcast on YouTube, man, you're missing out. And we're glad she's back with us today. Just a couple of things personal I want to say. First, a big thank you to all you people out there who've been so kind. Your cards and your letters and your calls and your posts on Facebook about the passing of my wife, Joni. We do appreciate it. She loved you and you loved her, and that's a great thing. We'll miss her terribly, but we'll be talking about her son. In fact, our picture of her is on the top left-hand corner right now, which will be there every night we do the show. I just wanted to say, for those who want to know about it, we just set the plans. The celebration of life will be here in Ocala at Marion County on the August the 12th, which would have been our 62nd anniversary. And the next day at our Church of Hope, we'll have a ceremony there. So that's going on. If you need any information, contact me. There is a Memorial Fund, Jonas Martin Memorial Fund. I won't give it over the air, but if you want to contact me, email me at buddymartinshow@gmail, whatever, I'll give you the information. Thank you for all your support. At a time like this, it's great to have a family on this show and on Gator Bait, and we do appreciate it. All right, a couple more things before we go to Allie. I wanted to say that notes here. Yeah, okay. I want to talk a little bit about what it means to have a group of people, a fraternity, a brotherhood, a sisterhood. I was at a terrific meeting today of my good friends, the Ocala Quarterback Club. What a great job they do. Mike McGinnis, Wes Wheeler, Fred Land, all of them. And we've lost some members this year. And we're going to have our first meeting coming up. We have one table. We lost 3 people. So we'll have 3 empty chairs there for those people who served at the Quarterback Club. We're still going strong. I'll get more information to you if you want to be a part of it. Lauren Meadows has just joined our board. So anyway, that's that. And then I think that's it for the day. So let's go back and let's hold our spots right now. Let's go see if we can get a hold of the new star. I mean, folks, she is rising fast. If you haven't been watching her, you better hurry up because she may be gone by the time you're ready to watch her. Allie Peak Wilbur, good evening to you, Allie.
Hey, buddy. How are ya?
I'm always good when you're on. You brighten my day.
Oh, I love being on. It's always a good time.
You know, I just come talk about your beautiful family. I think about them all the time, and I know how you do this Wonder Woman stuff with 2 sets of twins. My son's got 1 daughter, and he thinks he's got a full boat, and you're able to do that and also participate with her sporting events or whatever, and do your podcast, which I must say is really outstanding. You had one this week. I was jealous. What did I think of that? It was, and that's what I like about you, Allie. You have different takes, and the one you had about Gus Malzahn and the so-called Big Four. Here's UCF again, trying to make up their own awards and stuff. Yeah. We'll get to that in a minute, so I want to talk about that. But other topics of conversation, which we'll discuss tonight. The big story on Kitna. What a wonderful it was. It's such a good thing to have a good spin on a story that was so dark. And
Yeah.
folks who haven't heard about it, Jalen Kitna's charges were dropped. And it was child pornography, which is the worst kind of thing you could ever have.
Really.
And so they're dropped. We'll talk about that story for a minute in a second. And also the stadium. I have a little different take on it. I want to get your thoughts about that as someone who is embedded in this program for 5 generations and all kind of people, your relatives, your dad, your grandfather, everybody. I think at one time there was a whole team of peaks, just peaks, all peaks. We should have an all peak team, right? That doesn't even count the other peaks I know, David and and Gene, all that bunch, different peaks.
Yeah.
All right, so let me stop talking. What's going on?
Well, I feel like there's always something going on in Gator Nation. Recruiting is still is in full swing still. Florida only has a few spots left in this class. So super interested to see, we're about to go into a dead period where coaches won't be contacting players, but there are players who have commitments set, and there's a couple guys who we will have a hat on the table. So that'll be interesting to watch. And then obviously our team is going back to workouts to get ready for going into fall camp. And, before we know it, football season is going to be here. So I hope you're getting ready for, lots of not sleeping, because that's about to be what we're headed into for the fall.
Isn't it great? I mean, we kind of declare football seasons to start after the 4th of July. That's when it starts. It goes strong until the middle of January. And now it's like year round. So there's no such thing as, with all the recruiting, all the transfer portal and stuff. I was thinking today, there have been more changes in college football in the last 5 years than there have before that in the last 25 years.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It is. It's almost becoming somewhat unrecognizable. And I know that you're a traditionalist like I am. So there's parts of these change that just absolutely kill me. And but there's some parts of it that are good as well. So it's still the college football we know and love for right now. Recruiting is something that has really, honestly changed so much.
I don't even know what it is anymore. I mean, my gosh.
I was talking today to somebody about Eric's recruitment, and I told them how, he had decided between Miami and Florida. Those were his last 2 schools. And when he went on his official visit to Miami, Larry Coker put his national championship ring on Eric's finger and handed him the crystal ball trophy and said, if you want to win one of these, you're going to come to the University of Miami. You won't have a chance to win one at Florida. And the irony of all of that is Miami was not bowl eligible Eric's senior year, and he won a national title with Florida his senior year.
Don't believe what they tell you sometimes, folks. Don't believe what they say.
You don't want to believe it, but also it was such a simpler time, right? He was thinking, where am I going to get to play in big games? Where am I going to get developed? And where am I going to get a great education?
Yeah.
And those were truly the only 3 factors that mattered.
That's good thinking by him. That's good thinking.
And those 3 things are like afterthoughts to most of recruits these days. I guess getting developed is still decently high up there, but so many guys, where am I going to make the most money? How am I going to get to the league the absolute fastest? Like they're not as concerned about getting their education. They're not as concerned about their, long-term development or their exposure, because they know that, with NIL, they can create it pretty much anywhere. It's just so different. And my fear is that there's not going to be groups of guys who then continue to come back for the next 50 years anymore on these teams that we're signing. I hope that's not the case, and maybe they fall in love with these universities once they get there. But I feel like it's almost few and far between getting recruits that want to then be a Gator for the rest of their life. And that's a little sad.
Don't you hold out hope, though, that in the end, the great game of college football will survive, evolve, just like they thought, years ago they started changing things like TV packages. I only got one college game on Saturday when I grew up. But, when they started all the changes, there have been several premature announcements of the demise of college football already. The cheating scandals, et cetera, et cetera. It's such a great game.
Yeah.
It doesn't know what it is right now. It's trying to figure it out. I mean, what are they?
I
They're kind of NFL, kind of college football, they're kind of whatever. I
think you're
saw this.
right. I
Yeah.
think it's survivable. I think NIL right now is kind of, like we're like almost at the peak of it. I have to think it levels off at a certain point. If nothing more than there is not enough boosters in this country that care to just spend millions of dollars on nothing. At some point when there's not a return on investment, there's going to be less money for NIL, which I think will bring this down to earth a little bit more. And then it'll be a factor, but it won't be the factor. And I think for a lot of kids in this moment, it is the factor. And I'm okay with it existing, right? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with the idea of making money off the hard work that you put in.
Right.
I think it's just being used not in the way that it was dreamed up, right? And so that's where I have the issue with it. There's got to be some place between not having enough money to pay your phone bill and take your girlfriend to the movies and being worth $1 million and you've only played, one season. So there's just got to be some in between there. But I do think we eventually level out to that in between.
The free market will settle it eventually. But remember, it hasn't been that long ago where kids didn't have money for a candy bar. On the weekends, the train table was closed. And I always loved Steve Spurrier for what he did. It didn't get much publicity. It's in the book right behind me with Steve Spurrier, but he actually did when he was at spring meetings in Destin one time. He was coaching in South Carolina, and he told the coaches, "This is ridiculous. These kids got to make money. We all make enough money to pay them." He put his wallet up on the table, so each of us can fund a portion of our schools. The kids, give them some money, and he says, I tell you what, he says, I'm gonna get a list right here. I'm putting this out here and saying we all vote to give the kids money, and the people who vote no, I'm gonna have their name and I'm gonna give it to the press. That's what he said. Yeah, he was, and very controversial. There were 2 or 3 that didn't, and one of them was Mark Richt, by the way. So. Anyway, the point, of course, he didn't get it, but then that helped build the momentum for the future. Now it's gone the other way so far, so it'll settle in at some point, like you said.
Back in at some point, but it is unrecognizable in the moment.
It is that's a good phrase. I agree with that. So I got to get into a couple of things. I want you, for those who don't know, Allie has her Allie's Most Wanted list. It's really good. I mean, this is not just some list she slaps together. She has information. She knows she got the players, their situation, why Florida needs them, how they fit. She did her first one last week. We didn't do the greatest job in the world of publicizing it, but we're going to get better at it. And she does it probably on her podcast too. So she knows her stuff. So if you haven't seen it, pay attention. We're going to repeat it tonight for those you dummies who missed it the first time around, okay? Because it's a good list and she updates it. That's one. Secondly, we got to get to the stadium situation. I wrote a column today that some people don't like. I'm sorry. I have a little different take on it. And finally, the Kitten story we're going to talk about, and then the stadium. Lots to talk about. We'll take a quick break and just read this live spot. Come right back with Allie Peak Wilbur. Don't go anywhere. We're going to stay here. Titan MRIs, worth a short drive to Gainesville. No insurance, no problem. You can pay with cash or card with same-day scheduling available. You can start feeling better today. Titan MRI is North Central Florida's premier independent MRI facility. Come see why hundreds of patients are visiting our Gainesville location from Ocala, Marion County, and the Villages. That's TitanMRI.com. Back to Allie. Okay, where do you want to go first? We got those topics to talk about.
We can talk about some most wanted players.
Okay.
This week, I focused on offensive linemen and DBs because I think, Florida has right now the number 3 recruiting class in the country. They are on fire, but I think that Gator fans are still concerned about both of those positions. So there is help out there. There are players that Florida still has on their list. Offensive line-wise, a guy we've talked about on this show. I've also talked about him on my podcast, Fletcher Westfall. This would be a really big get for Florida. Right now, it seems like it's between Florida, Clemson, and Arkansas. I heard earlier today he's potentially a Clemson lead, and I did also see that a Clemson recruiting insider, put in a crystal ball for him to Clemson. Nobody else has put in a crystal ball yet. So I do think that Florida is still very much in the conversation. He announces July 10th, so there's not a whole lot of time left between now and then to convince him. But this is a 6'8", 335-pound offensive lineman, prototypical left tackle. He's out of Virginia, 4-star. And I mean, this would be a huge pickup to this class, both figuratively and literally. He's incredibly smart. His football IQ is something that everybody has raved about. He did say he really loved that UF had 2 offensive linemen or line coaches, excuse me. So I think Rob Sale and Darnell Stapleton kind of have a little bit of an advantage there. That makes Napier look pretty darn smart to have 2 when you have guys that specifically comment on Florida being in the mix because they think it's such a good idea to have 2 coaches. But like I said, everybody wants him, so that's going to be a tough battle. If Florida wins that, it's a massive pickup. This is a battle. And if Napier wins it, I think that's going to say a lot about the direction our recruiting is headed. Another player I think we have a really good shot with is Ty Hilton. He's out of Oviedo, and again, you got to win the battles for the guys in your own backyard. Oviedo is
right.
Yeah, it's so close to Gainesville. Unless you're battling just UCF for him, which you're not. Everybody wants him.
You mean UCF, that school is one of the big 4? Oh, wait a minute. We'll get to that in a minute.
They're not part of the big 4 just yet. I had lots to say about that this week as well. But Oviedo High School participates in Florida's biggest classification. He's gone up against some really good competition his whole high school career. He is a 3-star right now. I honestly expect him to probably get a bump in ratings as the fall begins. He is that good. 6'4", 270. So we're going to be looking to put some weight on him if he comes to Florida. That's kind of small for the offensive lineman that Napier seems to like, but it would be really helpful to get another big guy on that line. Favor Edwin is another one. He's out of Georgia.
Say his name again.
Favor Edwin.
Just the name alone, you'd like to have him.
Right?
Favor Edwin.
Do me a favor. Favor Edwin. 6'8", 290 pounds, out of Georgia. He's also a 3-star. He's got that prototypical offensive tackle size there as well. I honestly haven't heard a whole lot of buzz about him nationally. He had a really good visit recently. He's supposedly a really heavy Florida lean. I think this is going to be one of those things where if Florida decides they're going to let him pull the trigger, he'll be a Gator. And again, you want bodies on your offensive line. He may be a little bit more of a project, but offensive line is just such a crapshoot when you're recruiting it out of high school. The only thing you can't teach is size. So this is 6'8".
Or speed. You can't teach speed or size.
Speed either, but I don't know that we're getting a whole lot of speed out of these offensive linemen. But size you want. And 6'8", 290 pounds before you've gotten into a college nutrition program and workout program is definitely the type of body that Napier wants. And then the last one is Elijah Thurmond. He's also out of Georgia. He's 6'3.5", 271. So another guy that we would need to kind of bulk up a little bit if Florida gets him. He's a 3-star. Again, I don't think he has enough publicity. He is a Polynesian Bowl invite. He competes in Georgia's largest classification. He also plays basketball there, where he averages over 16 points a game, which for a big guy is pretty impressive. He camped with Florida last July and got offered on the spot. That I think is really interesting because it's not somebody that was necessarily on their radar. And then as soon as they saw him in person, they liked enough of what they saw to give him an immediate offer. So, that says something to me.
Yeah.
And a little bit smaller size, but like I said, big time college training program, strength and nutrition, all of that stuff will help him get to the size if Florida decides that this is somebody that they want. Gators are also a heavy favorite here. So I think this is one of those things like, okay, if maybe we don't get the highest ranked guy we want, this would be a great plan B. So, we'll see on him. And then DBs, I think Florida's got a lot of really good DB targets still out there. A name you and I have talked about is Zay Mincy. He's out of Mainland in Daytona Beach. 4-star guy. He's considered a Florida lean right now. I think the staff still kind of has to close the deal there. And it looks like he's going to play corner for Florida, which is really interesting because he's 6'3", 180 pounds
Ooh,
now
tall.
going into yeah. So I mean,
Go up and get
big.
that ball. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. But Corey Raymond seems to kind of like that body type. So, I think that that's somebody who will be in orange and blue sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
Another guy we've also talked about is Jamari Howard. He's the guy that was committed to Michigan State, decommitted so that he could take his time and look around. He's from Miami. He's got Florida in there, Florida State in there, Miami, and Michigan State is still very much on his radar. 4-star guy, 6'2", 175 pounds.
Yeah.
And if I had to guess, it's most a UF FSU battle. I don't know that there's a huge clear favorite here, and I think this will probably go into the fall because he has an official visit scheduled with Florida State in October, I believe, for the Virginia Tech game. So I don't know that we know on him anytime soon, but I think that it's going to be a Florida State battle. And this is a really fast guy. He was on that 4x400 Florida Relays team that
Speed,
won. So it would be a huge pickup. A guy that I do think will end up in orange and blue is the next guy on my list. That's Teddy Foster. He's out of Sarasota, 6'2", 170 pounds, 3-star. I think his stock will continue to rise. He wants to be a Gator. So I kind of think he's just waiting for the staff to give him the okay to pull the trigger. Again, a guy that wants to be a Gator. I love guys that end up on this roster because this is what they grew up wanting to be. And
that's what you need. Need that glue right here.
It is. You need that glue for every, star who is going to, be on every commercial for a national championship game. You need like 5 or 6 guys who not only are going to be major contributors there, but then are going to be, the glue of your program for years.
Love to put that uniform on, that orange and blue. I love to go on the field and see Mr. Two Bits, the tradition. It's a wonderful thing, I think. By the way, a lot of people remember your list or asking about the mainland guys. You addressed them, and so they're listening to you and paying attention to what you're saying, Allie, which is good. You're smart. Listen to her. Now, let me get to something before. Let's get to John. Let's get to Jalen Kidd now. Yeah. It was such a sad story when it happened. Yeah. I mean, any family. I happen to know a person who's going through the same thing, that their son got involved in that child pornography thing. That's a death sentence. Your life is over. Your parents' life is over. Just awful thing. When this happened to Jalen Kitna, who's kind of a member of the football royalty, his dad being a quarterback in the NFL, it was a dark day for everybody. And we thought he was just shipped off into wherever those people go. They're gone. But some good news today, if that's possible, came out of this case. Jalen Kidna had 5 child pornography charges dropped today. He was arrested in November in Gainesville, 2 counts of distribution of child exploitation material, 3 counts of possession of child pornography. He was released after posting bond, returned to his family home in Burleson, Texas, in the days following the arrest. He was dismissed from the Gators team shortly after that, putting into a brief career, orange and blue, at the red shirt in 2021. Wednesday's hearing, Kittner read a statement in front of the Lochner County Courthouse. I want to start off by apologizing to my family, my friends, and those that care about me, Kittner said. Their support through this whole ordeal has been a great deal to me. The hardest thing about this whole process has been seeing how difficult it's been for them. His mother and father were there, and that included his dad, who was a quarterback, John Kittner. What happens now after the plea deal? He will not need to serve any jail time. He will not be registered as a sex offender, which is a good thing right there. Instead, 8th Judicial Circuit Judge Susan Miller Jones placed him under 1-year probation, which could be reduced to 6 months if he abides by the conditions of the parole. So that's the story. I mean, there's so many questions here. You don't know what's going to happen to his football future if he even has one. B, you don't know why they changed it after the plea. C, we don't know if it's because the pictures they found they couldn't prove were his. I don't know what happened. It's a lot of questions to be answered. But on the surface, it's a good story. It makes you feel good that somebody's life is maybe not over, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope, and I find it incredibly hard to believe that a judge would drop the charges and, make it so that he didn't have to register as a sex offender
Mm-hmm.
if there was sort of, underage sexual crime that was
Mm-hmm.
committed here. So that makes me think that at least what we understood to be the case at the beginning is absolutely not. And that
Mm-hmm.
makes me really happy. He has a year-long probation. That shouldn't be an issue to serve. I don't know if this is somebody that college football will allow to have a second chance. If it really is some sort of misunderstanding, and this is totally just guessing, but I'm wondering did he believe that these pictures were somebody that was of age? Like maybe, there
Just
is
don't
some
know. You
misunderstanding
just don't know
there.
what it is.
We don't know, but there's obviously a lot of details here that have not come out,
Yeah.
right? Because I just can't picture a judge allowing charges to
Especially a female judge.
Correct, especially a female judge. I can't imagine the state prosecutor's office agreeing to these lesser charges if we didn't have the story wrong. And so because of that, that makes me happy for Jalen Kidna. And maybe his football career is over, but his life isn't over. And
That's a great point right there. That's it. Yeah.
That's the huge part of this.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to register as a sex offender. He essentially
Yeah.
gets to start over. And if this was something where the state got it wrong, that makes me terribly sad for him.
Yeah.
That, it really did change the course of his life so greatly. But
Yeah.
the good news is he's got the rest of the time, and he comes from a good family who, I'm sure can help him figure out a different life path if football is not it. But if he didn't deserve to be charged with such heinous crimes, I'm glad that they were dropped.
Good point. All right. In the Orange Movement was David Molson. We'll get to him in a second. I want you to get into your big four. I love how you told off Gus Malzahn. Boy, you put it right to him. I'll let you explain it. And just keep in mind, and I'm not anti-UCF. I'm glad their program is doing well. But, I mean, just like they're the ones who name themselves national champions.
Sure.
Now we got this. Tell them what it was and tell them what you said to them. And you nailed Malzahn. You put it right to his face about the recruiting classes and the rankings. So if you haven't seen it on YouTube, go look it up. Allie, go.
Well, UCF, Gus Malzahn came out this past week and he said that he really thought it should be the big four. And that if you looked at the past, and he said 6 to 8 years, you'll see that UCF has been the most successful, or, something along those lines. And it's just not accurate. If you look at the recruiting classes of the last 6 to 8 years, which I did, there is no comparison at all to what UCF has done and to what Florida State, and Miami has done. Their worst class, I want to say, was 70th. And I think their best class was like 48 or 38, something. I mean, it was just crazy. And Florida State, Florida had a number one recruiting class during that time. Florida had top 10 multiple times. It's not comparable. And then if you look at the guys that are put into the league, Florida has put 49 in the league. I believe UCF has put 13 during that same window of time. So you're not bringing in talent that is the same. You're bringing in inferior talent. You're not developing talent in the same way. And you're not playing as tough of a schedule as the other three. So while I think it's commendable what UCF has done, and I totally understand they don't get to pick their opponents. So their schedule is kind of what it is. Their conference was what it was. But to pretend like they're equal is just crazy. And UCF fans do hang their hat on this mythical national championship, which was awarded by an obscure poll who routinely gets it wrong. The Coley Matrix named Notre Dame the national champion in 2012, the day after Alabama beat Notre Dame head-to-head in the actual national championship game. And then in 2016, which is the year before the Coley Matrix named UCF national champion, they named Alabama the national champion when Clemson and Alabama played, and Clemson won head-to-head. So this is just, I think the Coley Matrix was created to be used as part of a larger formula, which is what the BCS used it as. It was just a piece of the puzzle. I don't think it was ever supposed to be like a standalone whole, but UCF says, well, it's in the record books, so it means we won, and they, put it all over their stadium and whatever else. And I just think everybody else kind of thinks it's a joke. And I think they're playing their cards wrong. I've grown up in Florida. I've lived here my entire life. If UCF was fun to cheer for, I would cheer for them as like the little brother. Same thing I do for USF. I want USF to do well. I'm excited that they're getting a new stadium on campus. I'm excited when they make good hires. I loved when Charlie Strong was there. There's nothing about USF that I'm competitive with at all. I just want them to do well. And it could have been like that for UCF, but they thumb their nose at everybody else and say that, they're the best in the state and they're this fake national champion and act like they're the same, and they're not yet. And that doesn't mean that they might not get there. They may. And they, with all the resources in the state of Florida, almost shame on them if they don't get a whole lot bigger and better now that they're in the Power Five. But I just think it's crazy to act like you're already there and kind of just discount all of the history of the Big Three.
Agreed, well said. And I do think it's good they got the Big 12 because there are going to be some interesting teams in there now. Yeah. Certainly Houston is more interesting, and they're going to play an interesting schedule, and they will be more competitive in recruiting. Sure. Some of those 3 stars that Florida might have gotten may not get now, and so it's getting close. They're encroaching on Gator country, and they got to deal with them. It's a factor that they have to deal with. So, listen, I'm going to do this. Can you stay a minute? I want to put this. Absolutely. I want to put this commercial on. Let's bring Dave Moulton on because I want to talk about the stadium.
All right.
I have a little different take on it. Some people didn't like my column. I'm sorry. We'll talk about what it is. A $400 million dealer invited architects to come in. They're going to do it has to be done. But there's a little warning from me about this before you get too excited about it and you start tearing things down. Okay? So I've seen this movie before many times. And I'm not being a downer about it. I want to say my piece about it. You and Moulton can beat me up if you want to. That'll be fine. And we'll take this commercial break, come back, and David Moulton will join Allie Peak. Can you stay for a minute, Allie? Is that all right?
Absolutely, yeah.
You got to take kids to bed. All right, stand by.
Oh, no, I'm good.
All right, stand by. You guys have done so well in your business, but take me inside the organization and tell me, what's it like when dad and son kind of get in there and don't agree on things?
Well, there's 2 dynamics going on, right? It's lawyer to lawyer and father to son. So sometimes, when the father and son stuff goes on, you have to take a break for a minute. You just say,
take a beat. Yeah.
I'm gonna go get some coffee. I'll be right back.
That's better than shouting. Shouting doesn't work. No, for sure. Well, being in my business, I have my son Brendan also working with me. And it's been a test for both of us. I pity him. It's like I pity Carrie having to work for you. But bottom line is, it's an honor. Really.
I know your son, and he's a great kid. Yeah. And we're both very blessed to have our kids work with us. And look, it's a blessing in most regards. Sometimes it's challenging. However, there's a level of trust that you have with family that you can't replace with anybody else.
Jeffrey Meldon, by the way, he does practice law, just in case you forget to mention. They won't back down. Here's a guy who won't back down. I listened to the show some last week. Always a pleasure to have him on. We've got a name for you two already. I'll tell you what it is. Let's go to the Orange and Blue room and see our friend David Moulton. Hi, David.
Hi, Allie. Hi, buddy. How are you?
We've got a name. We've got a name for you guys already. Terry Johnson. Let's see. Everybody likes you paired up in the same program. Here, what did they say? Hold it. Here it is. Dan Bond says, Allie and David, the sweet and sour hour. I'll let you guess which one's sweet.
I think we all know who is who.
Don't need a program to figure that one out, right?
No.
So thanks, David. It's good to talk to you again. And Allie, of course, has regaled us with many stories the last couple of minutes, last 25 minutes. I have a story I wanted to talk about while you both were here. Okay. And I'll start out by putting myself out there. It's the story of the stadium makeover. We all know the details. Mm-hmm. I took a little bit of a different tact on it today, and I don't think some of the people I work with liked it. But anyway, I did it. I just said this. Look, we know it has to be done. They're going to tear down, so to speak, the house that Spurrier built, in a sense, We knew this was coming this day to do it right. And they got $400 million deal out there on the table. I just put a word of caution in there. Just be careful. Don't get, because these things can go wrong sometimes. Has to stay the swamp. There's all kinds of things they've considered. I know for a fact one thing they had to discuss, which I don't think they're going to do, is maybe building a stadium someplace else. Be a horrible mistake because you got that sacred ground, one of the most iconic stadiums in all of sports. I don't think they want to do that, but when you get in there and start digging and changing things around, things can get out of control. I just plead with them, be careful. Remember, this piece of property you got. Remember the word progress has damned a lot of places, a lot of projects. And the name of progress, I've had it happen right here in my hometown. And so let's be careful about that word progress. The last thing I said was, I don't think that word progress was in the lexicon when the people decided to salvage and save Fenway Park or Wrigley Field. I'm not saying it's that, but you get my drift. I'm a preservationist. I want to make sure it doesn't go wrong. David, take me apart. Go ahead.
Well, I got to admit, I want to ask the two of you, but especially Allie. So when you say it has to be done, what is it that the University of Florida is saying that they're not getting from the swamp that they need to get in order to feel that they're in line with Bryant-Denny Stadium and Tiger Stadium and the other, highly thought of stadiums in the SEC? What is it that the swamp is not delivering the athletic department that it needs a $400 facelift for?
So, buddy, I don't know if you've heard this same thing. My assumption is, based on what you just said, you have. I have been told that there's major foundation and structural issues with the swamp that have to be addressed.
Okay.
So absolutely nothing about what we actually see. I have been told that there's some serious internal problems with the swamp.
So this isn't, we need wider concourses, we need more bathrooms.
That doesn't mean that those things won't come, but that's not what's prompting this as far as what I have been told. Now, I think they'll take advantage of the moment, but like what Buddy said about moving it, what I was told last fall is that they were debating 3 options, and they were this facelift, they were building a new one over out by where the baseball field is, or they were tearing down and then rebuilding on the same spot. And if the teardown happened, the conversation was going to be play in Tampa while the new replacement was built. And so what I was told a year ago is that those were the 3 options being discussed, and it had to do with the foundation of the stadium. Now, I know that Strickland does have a different vision of a college football stadium than maybe those of us sitting on this panel have. And I know that he really likes the way that Texas A&M's is set up, which I personally don't love the open end zone at all. But the space that the swamp is on really kind of limits what can be there. So since they've decided the facelift, I think that seems like the least change, which I'm happy with, but I'm interested to see the number of seats that come out. But having sat in Bryant-Denny and having sat in Tiger Stadium and everywhere else, Tiger Stadium is a dump with amazing scoreboards and light effects and and a really crazy crowd. So I don't know that there's anything comfort wise or, state of the art technology wise that is in that stadium that they don't have elsewhere. I do think Bryant-Denny is a little bit roomier, maybe, so to speak, your seats. And it's just not as up and down as the swamp is, but that's kind of what gives the swamp its allure, right? Is the fact
that it gives it its sound. I mean, the way it is built gives it its sound. That stadium, for an outdoor stadium, is one of the 3 best that I've ever been in at keeping the sound in an outdoor stadium. In fact, I could argue, I still to this day, Winky threw a pick 6 in 99 in the swamp, and the Gators took the lead against number 1 Florida State late in the 3rd quarter. And at that moment, that still to this day, that's the loudest sound at a sporting event I've ever heard.
Yeah, I was at that game, and I think I was 14 years old. And when Jarvis Moss blocked the kick 6 in 2006, and people were saying that's the loudest I've heard the stadium, I'm like, that is not the loudest that this stadium has been. This is maybe for you guys sitting in here now, but the 99 game was louder. So I think we'll get some bells and whistles. I'm concerned about the number of seats potentially being taken away. I've heard a really wide range of numbers. If it's, 1,500
what
and everybody has butt room, okay, but much more than that, it's not worth the trade-off.
are they talking about trying to provide any kind of shade? And because the Hard Rock, okay, the owner there put 400, 500 million in that stadium.
Sure.
He needed to in order to get another Super Bowl. But what he did was he basically covered just about every seat. The field's not covered, but most every seat is. And so if you go to a game, as we all know in this state, you go to an outdoor game in September and early October, it's hot as blank. And I'm curious, with this 400 million, are they going to try to reduce the temperature by 5, 7, 8 degrees?
I don't know. That's not something that I had heard as a priority, but they haven't really said, hey, we're going to do X, Y, and Z just yet. So that may be something we don't even know for sure till the renderings come out. And obviously that's going to take them hiring, a firm. But
my guess is no, just because of how the stadium's built. And I'm not going to pretend to have anything to do with architecture. I mean, I can't even draw well, but I mean, since the stadium is so straight up, okay, and it's not bent over in any way, I would think any kind of canopy would be very difficult to build.
Yeah, you would think. I mean, I don't, Buddy, what do you think? I know.
That's a lot. You guys have made some great points there. I had not heard about the foundation, but I'm always a little suspect of those things sometimes. And people say, well, the foundation means you got to go down and dig it out. I don't know. I do know they'll shrink it, and they should. But the problem is, like David said, well, because it makes the tickets more valuable. You have to have the game experience be at least equal to what you get at home. Right now, it's not. Clearly, the home deal is better.
All but one game last year, and Florida wasn't even good. I mean, I don't know.
I don't know if you can do. I don't think we're talking about that big a difference swing, because I mean, look, the ingredients that goes into the swamp. First of all, Spurrier naming it that. It's in a hole. We know that, right? Yeah. It's loud. It's hot. Yeah. It's raucous. It's 90,000 people. Yeah. When you start messing with any of that stuff, you're messing with the swamp. You need those elements, and it's part of what it is to play in the swamp.
I'll say this. I would hate for them to, because I guess they officially list seated capacity at like 88 and change, and we all know that they jam 90 and 91 in there. But I would want them to not reduce it by more than 10%. I would at least want capacity to still have a first digit of an 8. Mm-hmm. Now, Alabama, interestingly enough, renovated Bryant-Denny Stadium about 15 years ago and made it over 100,000. Yeah. They've now taken seats back, built more suites, and I think capacity's down in the low 90s.
And they get more money. They still have fewer people. So,
and I'm wondering also if I'm Florida, if I reduce capacity by 10%, but I add 2 dozen suites.
That's how it's going. That's how it's going. Without doubt, it's going to be more suites. That's okay, I guess.
I'll make you a prediction, by the way. They'll reduce student seating. Okay, because I mean, what do the students pay for those tickets?
$8. I don't know.
A lot, but also they don't come some of the time, or they come, but they come at the end of the first quarter, and and then they leave. Which, by the way, that was not the case when I was a student.
No, you couldn't get a ticket.
So disappointed at. I don't think I won the lottery of that till like my junior year of college.
Yeah, I remember there were 20,000 people standing in line to get season tickets.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
It's just all changed, and look, they got to change the bathrooms. We know that. Yeah, got to do something about that. The whole parking is another story. I don't know if they can get in that or not. They've got to make some changes in the seats. They're totally uncomfortable. There is a way to put shade in there because they did it in one of the end zones. As you know, part of one of the north end zones was underneath the eave, which is great. So you can do a lot of things. I do think they will do it carefully. I think Strickland's going to do it cautiously and very not destroy the atmosphere. But as I say, it doesn't take much to screw around with it to mess it up, the formula. You got to be careful, and please, please, please don't make it not the swamp.
I kind of wish there was like a board or a panel of former players and administrators or something like that to kind of help make the decisions, because it does feel a little weird that Scott Strickland, who, I mean, a lot of people would argue is kind of on a hot seat, is going to make the determination about, you know, the next 100 years of the Swamp. I would feel a lot better if, like, you know, Steve Spurrier and even Jeremy Foley and things like that are sitting on a board to decide the future, people that helped create where we are at UF now, instead of somebody who, to be completely honest, may not be here in 5 years. He may not be here to see this project all the way through. And I mean, hopefully he will be. Maybe he will be. I don't know.
But we're going to be here. We're going to be here when he's gone. At least you guys will be.
Yeah.
I mean,
we'll all be here when he's gone.
They come and they go. I've seen a whole bunch of coaches come and go here for the last 50-some years. So, and it's our stadium and our team and whatever.
Spurrier's not on the panel?
Oh, I don't know.
He might be. He might be.
He very well may be, but
I don't think there is a panel yet.
Strickland's the person calling the shots at the moment. I just would feel a lot better if maybe he was one voice instead of the voice, because I don't think a temporary position should decide the long-term future of the football stadium.
Yep, I agree with that. Well, it's going to be an interesting conversation. There's going to be a lot of ideas, a lot of people. Again, as I said this earlier, it has to be a better experience. The problem is the prices are going to go so far up. The working person is already excluded from it now. This is going to mean it's even going to be worse because they have to have that money. And, you know, they may be paying $200 a seat. I don't know what's going on there. But we got to, it's taken, ESPN calls a shot. Listen, everybody's working for ESPN. They call the shot at the time of day, whatever. And they're all do what the ESPN says. But the experience is, I will say, now, I don't know, David, you go to all the games. Allie, you go to some. I go to a few. But to me, honestly, I'd rather be home in front of my television with my big screen and I'm clicking around in commercial breaks. I got my ice water or beer right there. If I got to go to the bathroom, it takes me 2 seconds. I don't go in line. I got my big easy chair. What's not to like, David?
For most games, I'd agree with you. But when the team gets really good and there's a really big game, there ain't nothing like being there.
I would pick being there against any team any day than watching at home.
Come on. I mean, that fourth quarter against Utah last year, I mean, the way that place was rocking, and, you know, we all have our favorite memories from when that place has exploded. I mean, I agree with you, buddy. You know, bigger TV, air conditioning, the whole deal. I get it, but I don't know. When that pass got picked off in the end zone last year against Utah.
Look, I want to make sure something clear. I'm a journalist. I love being there. I've been there for, you know, almost 60 years, and I love it. But if I'm a fan, fan,
listen,
here's the deal. All that money.
Whatever they do, they have to make sure the sound remains the sound. They have to make sure that when Allie goes into that stadium in 10 years, that she goes, no, I'm being serious, Allie. When you go into that stadium in 10 years and on a good team and a big play happens, you have to turn to your kids and go, it sounds exactly like it did when I was your age. That's whatever they do.
Yep.
It has to feel like the Swamp. And then if they pull that off, it's a success.
Yeah.
Great
I agree
point.
with that.
Great point. Let's let Mrs. Peak go, David. You and I got a few things to talk about. Allie, it's always wonderful to have you on. And don't forget now, folks, check out her YouTube podcast. I'm going to get it right. A peek inside the Gator football, right?
Peek inside Gator football. That's right.
You're on there a lot lately. I've seen you 2 or 3 times this past week. So
yeah.
I don't see how you do it with 2 sets of twins. But keep it up, and we want to get your next article for Gator Bake when you're ready. And, of course, she'll be back with us on Wednesday. Sweet and sour now. I guess we're stuck with this, right?
Perfect.
All right, Allie. Thanks very much.
Take care,
Appreciate
Allie.
it. Best to all the kiddies and the fam.
You.
All right, folks. David, I got a few things to talk with you about. I guess we've covered the stadium pretty well in terms of, you know, that sort of thing. I think the story of the week is the Jalen Kitna story, and it's one of those bad stories that has a good twist to it, and you know, we don't know the details. It's hard to know, but we know that he was a dead man, 6 months ago. When you get charged with child pornography, you're done. Your family's done. Disgrace your family. And they've dropped the charges now, and it's going to be interesting what's going to happen to his life. But is in the worst possible scenario of a story, now suddenly there's a ray of hope that maybe there's some explanation here. What do you think?
How does somebody get charged with 5 salacious felonies and have them go away? Either was he wrongly charged, or did money and influence by this, outcome? Well, I mean, come on, buddy. It's one or the other.
I don't know.
I don't know. 5 felonies, 5 salacious felonies.
I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer. It's a good question. I mean, there's so much we don't know.
Either he was completely overcharged and it's a miscarriage of justice, or, quite frankly, whether they outlawyered him or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was a stunning legal outcome today.
It was.
I mean, it really was. I'm glad, and I hope that nothing truly horrendous happened behind the scenes. Mm-hmm. But, I have to admit, is that really the big story of the week?
To me, it is in terms of what I meant to say. It's an interesting story. It could have a really good outcome. I'm rooting for his family. I'm rooting for it to be right. I have a friend who's gone through this. It's destroyed him and his family. It's terrible. And he's part of football royalty, Kitna, John Kitna. And I don't know what happened. I have no idea. I've heard things like you have, maybe the pictures they found were not his. I don't know. But I'm just saying I was really pleased. I guess I wanted a feel-good story today, David, and I got it. So that's one I really enjoyed. And I'm really happy for them. They've got some possible outcome beyond just a deep, dark hole, which a family could be destroyed in. So, David, let's talk about this concept that Nally had when she wrote about the Big Four. It's a good story because UCF is making noise. UCF is in the Big 12. UCF has got better games. UCF is close to Gainesville and is going to be a factor in the future. But whenever Gus Malzahn tried to jump up and say, hey, it's the Big Four, and now
this kind of reminds me of 6 years ago when the athletic director, right. And guess what? Both stunts have worked. They've gotten people talking about it, the people writing columns about it. So it's worked. I mean, what Gus said has worked. Obviously, they're not equal to the quote unquote Big Three. And you could go in the last 10 years and look at wins and losses and bowl wins and what have you. But also, come on, let's be honest. If they had played in the ACC or SEC over the last 10 years, would they have the same one-loss record that they have now? Of course not. Okay. But with that being said, Gus has signed 4 4-stars already in the class of 2024. They're in a Power 5 conference. Let me ask this poll question. And I'm not doing this to honk anybody off, because we asked this poll question on our show when Gus said, hey, we should be, considered part of the Big Four, blah, blah, blah. Which school will play for their conference championship first? UCF, Miami, or Florida?
Great question. Did you say FSU?
Well, no, I didn't put FSU in it because I'm assuming right now FSU's, if they're preseason top 10, that they could play in it this year. No one's expecting Miami, UCF, or Florida to play in it this year.
Right.
The earliest is next year. So just, everybody answer the poll question accordingly. Every conference, Big 12, ACC, and SEC are eliminating divisions and just putting their 2 best teams in the regular season in the conference championship game. So they're all playing by the same rules going forward. Between Miami, UCF, and Florida, which team do you think makes their conference championship game first?
Well, how did your poll question come out?
The poll question came out either UCF or Miami. And most people, when they commented, they said they play in an easier conference. That's why I'm picking them.
Okay. That's legit.
Now I will say UCF, I think's picked no better than like 7th in the Big 12 this year so far.
Yeah.
And if you go by Vegas's, over under, UCF's not even expected to have, I think, an above 500 season. And that, we all know Florida's over under is 5.5, and Miami's over under this year is 7.5.
We got lots all summer to talk about that. All those summers moving along pretty fast. You and I'll be discussing that game by game. David won't be here next week. He's abandoning me to go do something. I don't know what. But
yes, I'm abandoning you.
You abandoning me? Yes, sure. Somebody else has got more money, which would be anybody, by the way. All right. So you got golf going on, and now let's talk about this. Ben Shelton won his first match today in Wimbledon. Nice, nice story there.
Sure.
I have not watched Wimbledon, and I don't know. You used to watch it all the time. Do you follow Wimbledon? Do you do? What do you think?
Yeah, I'm a closet tennis fan, although I must admit that there are far less stories to follow. The other thing is, buddy, you and I are of the age in which Wimbledon used to be over by now. When McEnroe and Borg played in 81, they played on July 4th. Usually the men's or women's final was played within 24 to 48 hours of July 4th. So it is interesting that this tournament is now essentially 2 weeks later than it used to be. They pushed the fortnight back a fortnight.
Well, Vern Lundquist used to have a tournament, he and Doak Walker in Cebo Springs every year around the 4th of July. And we went every year. It was a wonderful time up there, old Vern. And used to listen to Doak Walker go to his back door and out his door, and he sing his song Sugar Booger. That was a highlight. But I always remember it because I watched the Wimbledon tournament during that time. It's always what we did when we weren't playing golf 36 holes a day. But, so I'll watch some Wimbledon. I haven't watched it in a while. I'll probably watch it this week a little bit. Baseball, Rays got beat tonight. God, their pitching is starting to
4 in a row. Well,
starting to worry me. But in all fairness, I know everybody has a road trip. They've had a brutal road trip. The West Coast, Seattle, whatever, out there for a long time. And they still got enough cushion where they're okay going to the All-Star break. But they do have 3 All-Stars. Wander Franco was added. And then, of course, they've got Yandy Diaz and Randy Arozarena.
Well, and it would have been 4, but McClanahan ended up on the IL.
Right.
But he, it wouldn't surprise me if they name him an All-Star and then replace him. Because, in fact, he might very well have started the game.
Yeah.
But listen, they could use another arm or two. Who couldn't?
Yeah.
And, listen, they're finding out this week. First off, the Phillies have now won 11 straight on the road.
They're hot.
Yeah, well, and they're really hot away from home. Yeah. And then the Rays are going to have to contend with the Braves, who are the best team in baseball.
Yeah.
And heading into tonight at 1-9 of 10.
Yeah, don't get me started with him, because now I got to put up with Ben Troop talking how great the Braves are, how much better they are than the Rays and all that.
Well, they are better than the Rays.
No, don't you start on me too.
Listen, I picked up Rays World Series with the Braves winning, and I'm a Mets fan. But right now, there's nobody. They're the 2 best organizations in baseball. But the Braves just have a deeper lineup than the Rays. They do. The Braves lineup is sick.
Yeah,
it's sick.
It is. Acuna's amazing, no doubt about it.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. All right, so here's this for you. How do you like the hot dog eating contest? Because I hate it, by the way.
Well, first off, it's not sports.
Okay? They say it's sports. They call it sports.
It's not sports. It's
I agree with you.
All right. Buddy, I've actually competed in a couple.
No, David, don't tell me that.
Hold on. I've never competed. All right.
My guy, David. Now, no, David.
I competed in Shula's Steakhouse, had a steak contest.
Well, steak's different. That's better.
Okay. So it was a 48-ounce porterhouse, and who could eat it the fastest.
Yeah.
And I finished first, but apparently I left a very, very small piece of meat in a corner, and I did. So anyway, they ruled me second.
Oh, no, the judges got you on that.
But, buddy, true story. So doing the radio show in the afternoon a few years ago, and they're pumping up the hot dog eating contest.
Yeah.
And they're coming through, and they got 2 local contestants that are going to compete in the local qualifier.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is before the show. We go in the back parking lot of the station. We get a table, get the 2 contestants, and I decide, you know what? Let's just see how I match up against the 2 local contestants. And we ate hot dogs for 2 minutes. All right. Now, I had just had 2 double cheeseburgers for lunch.
Oh, David, not good planning.
All right. We had 2 minutes to eat the hot dogs, and the guy says, listen, you better take the bun and put it in the water and the whole deal. Okay. So, buddy, in 2 minutes, I had 13 hot dogs.
No.
Yeah. I just buried the other 2.
They were
the
full size? They were full size?
Oh, yeah, just buns, the whole deal. Boom, 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 boom.
David, wow.
And the guy came up to me and he said, listen, don't get me wrong. Okay. You wouldn't win. All right. And I don't even think you'd win this region because there's a guy who's going to qualify out of the South who normally can pound down like 40 something. And I went, okay. He goes, but you could probably be top 3 in the region if you could keep that pace up. I'm like, huh? And then I told him, I said, I just had 2 double cheeseburgers too.
Well, Joey Chestnut, by the way.
No.
I got the final number on him. I don't even want to talk. I hate this, but anyway.
62.
In 10 minutes, 62. Calories, 18,414. Yep. Total fat, 1,129. Carbohydrates, 1,488. And protein, 682. If you're eating that many hot dogs, what do you care, right? It doesn't matter. So,
by the way, this isn't the only thing that he does. He does a glazed donuts contest. He does a pulled pork sandwiches contest. Wow. Yeah, I mean,
Molson, you're amazing. Your crack research team gets you all kind of good stuff, man. Great.
My crack research team. That's me surfing the internet at about 4:30 in the morning.
That's what I meant. That's what I meant. You can hear him, by the way. If you go in early, you can hear him talking before he goes on the air. He and Miller say, well, we're on the air. Yep. Went around, and finally they go on the air. Love the show. If you haven't caught it, check it out. He's on 5 mornings a week, right?
6 to 10 a.m., Lake City, Tampa, St. Pete, Port Charlotte to Venice, Southwest Florida, floridasportsnetwork.com.
Nice.
Check us out.
I think we should get Freddie Weeby to give us a mahi-mahi eating contest at Spurrier's Gridiron Grill. What do you think?
I'm all in. I can get there in less than 2 hours. Let's go.
I know. We're going to do that soon. For sure, we're going to do it. David, as always, thank you. Great stuff. You take care, and we'll talk, or won't talk. Talk to you in 2 weeks.
I sure will, buddy.
Have a great trip wherever you're going. All right, thank you, David. David Bolton. All right, I want to say once again, thank you to all of you people out there who've been so kind, who sent me cards and letters and emails and what have you. I haven't gotten to them yet to respond, and I will eventually, every one of you. Thank you, especially the group here on the show. How great that is. I want to tell you about some really good people that also mean a lot to me. They're our friends. They've been supporters, sent some beautiful flowers to us, by the way. And the people there are first class. I'm talking about Joe Sorrentino and Mary Brantley at Rentstar. And they're not only are they great people, they do great work and they support our community. They are really good at finding out things, a way to treat us in our health. And they have these patient-centered clinical research studies they do with cutting-edge technology, trials and things like fibromyalgia, migraine, psoriasis, Alzheimer's, dementia, etc., and to get information to help treat us, those of us who do have these anomalies. If you'd like to help out, they love getting local people because they want to get the DNA from us here so they can give us a priority. You can go be a part of one of these, maybe get compensated for time and travel. Just go to their website, rentstar.net, check them out. This research goes into the information they send to prominent pharmaceutical and biomedical companies throughout the medical industry. So check them out, rentstar.net. Remember, Rentstar Medical Research, seeking tomorrow's answers to the health questions of today. Great show tonight. Thanks to David. Sweet and sour, you said, right? Is that what we called it? Always good to have those two on, especially tonight. Have a good night, folks. We're back again tomorrow night. We got the Orange and Blue Buds with Ben Troop and the gang right here on The Buddy Martin Show.